Thank you, Madam Chair. I got a lot of car drivers that want to ask me this one here. Does California have a special 55.1 mile per hour speed limiter when trucks are on the 4-lane freeway passing each other, doing those 4-mile-long turtle races? You don't have to answer that, but there's a lot of frustrated car drivers getting behind those turtle races when they're going 55.1 for about 4 miles. Anyway, what I'm going to jump to here is the FET tax and a repeal we're working on. The FET on new trucks is 12%, which is higher than alcohol and tobacco sin taxes in most states. This tax has been around 100 years. It was in place to help pay for World War I. It doesn't really generate that much money. It adds about $20,000 in costs to new trucks. And so when we're trying to incentivize people to get newer, cleaner burning, more safe trucks, that seems like that's an opposite effect. It's really going to be huge for jobs and for injecting more into the truck builders economy, as well as putting safer, nicer rigs on the highway. So, Mr. Noble, Mr. Spear, do you think repealing this tax would lead to an increase in purchases of these cleaner, safer, nicer trucks?
I don't necessarily have an opinion on if the tax is repealed, if how that would affect, from a PepsiCo standpoint, emissions. It's not about necessarily expense of the equipment. It's the right thing to do from an emission reduction and investing in technology for the right business reasons.
All right, no opinion?
No opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, we would favor repealing it. As you said, it's 1917. And of those taxes that were put forward at that time for World War I funding, this is the only one that still stands as law. All the others went away. I don't know what the history is behind that and why ours is the only one that still remains intact, but it isn't just, and it is an inhibitor of buying new, safer, more environmentally friendly equipment. And it's a serious number. If you're purchasing a truck brand new, this is an issue. So we'd strongly recommend that it be repealed. We also understand that you're working under requirements to offset. We get the budgetary restraints that Congress is under. We'd also work with you when funding an infrastructure bill to find ways to do that, because I think this would be a really good step forward.
We're certainly looking at offsets on that too, but Congress over the decades has kind of turned it on and off over time. But Ms. Chase, Mr. Spencer, based on what you know about these newer trucks, do you think they are safer, more efficient for our network?
I do think that newer trucks have the capability and to be safer, and most certainly they should be equipped with the technologies that I mentioned earlier, such as speed limiters, automatic emergency braking, lane departure warning. And when I just did a ride along last week, I firsthand experienced how safe a truck can be. Mm-hmm. And so I think that all trucks should be required to be as safe as the one I was in.
Yeah, as long as the speed limiter is not stuck on 55.1 on California freeways, right? I'm stuck. Okay, no, Mr. Spencer.
Specific to California, the point that you make over and over and over is speed-limited trucks, whether they're speed-limited through technology or through artificially low speed limits, simply serve as impediments, barriers to other people trying to drive down the road. And I think it's really, really interesting, too, that we have proponents for making tougher rear-end underride equipment on trailers when we have policies that actually have the net effect of causing more cars to rear-end trucks. I think it's somewhat ironic that we do that. Your question specifically to the federal excise tax, that's money right now that goes into the Highway Trust Fund that has been short for a number of years. As small business truckers, we'd like to see the Highway Trust Fund fully funded through user fees. And simply picking off the user fees that go into there now, we think is sort of short-sighted public policy. We're optimistic that at some point Congress will make the decision to fully fund it.
So I appreciate that. Well, let's shift real quick, Mr. Spencer, to ELDs and flexibility that people are looking for on that. Do you think they are really improving the safety of trucks? You kind of alluded to that before. Are they really improving safety, or is the flexibility actually making people do strange things on ELDs?
Again, my background is trucking. I did it myself. I drove when I drove when I felt like driving. I drove to accommodate weather. I drove to accommodate shippers and receivers. And it wasn't always in blocks of 10 or 11 or 14. Again, what ELDs have done has created the stress level for drivers, but what they've pointed out is the problems that we have with existing hours of service regulations, which there is broad agreement that we need to modify them to provide drivers flexibility.
Yeah, especially with livestock or hazardous materials, the way I see it, if you got, you need to get that extra hour, or you need to get this material somewhere. It isn't, got to take a break. I'm in the middle of I-80 between San Francisco and wherever. It's, it doesn't seem to provide sensible flexibility.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, ma'am.